Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 23. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In the show, I'm covering a wide range of communication skills ranging from public speaking, storytelling, emotional resilience, creativity, and much more. To join the tribe and stay updated with the latest episodes, be sure to hit that subscribe button right on below, hit that bell notification, and never miss another video again. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about a wide range of topics, but we got to start off with creativity. There was this one client that I was working with a couple of months back, and I recall he was this highly introverted guy. He was the CEO. We were talking for a while. He was recommending some books to me, but he would tell me, hey, Armani, there are different players in my company that are saying I should show my face a little bit more. But I feel nervous. Whenever I'm showing my face, especially on the digital landscape, I feel as though others are judging me. They're watching me. I'm like, they're supposed to watch you, man. They're watching your videos. He's like, nah, man, not watching me like that. Watching me as if they're judging me. And that's when I had to remind him that in terms of communication skills as a whole, it really started off with body language from our primal ancestors. Our primal ancestors, they did not have words to communicate. So a lot of them, the way that they would communicate was with their eyes, with their palms, with their facial gestures. In terms of the grand scheme of things, body language makes up a large part of it. From there, words eventually became, you could say, an emergent property. Words are a form of technology. It allows us to go from a dial-up internet to high-speed internet. When you're saying something like this is you using your palm to say stop. This could mean a lot of things. If you hold your palm like this in a certain way, it actually looks like a hi. So there's miscommunication that can happen between stop or hi versus you using words. Words allow you to just say, nope, I mean hi. There's more elegance with that. So words are rather new. Now from that, what my client was struggling with was using words in front of technology. That is as new as you can possibly imagine. In terms of the bigger picture, I would say 1% of it is communicating with technology. The thing with our era is that we need to learn how to communicate with technology. And I've noticed that there's different ways to get started. With my client, the one thing that we're working on is getting him started with a public and private YouTube channel. The public YouTube channel, he can actually post the videos that he's comfortable with. For the private YouTube channel, though, you know what he has to do? He has to post videos there that he is uncomfortable with. He has to discuss topics that he would somewhat feel embarrassed discussing, even at family events. This is the raw side of him. The only people that can see the private YouTube channel, it's me and it's him. And each time that he publishes on the private YouTube channel, a part of him starts to feel better. He feels bold for the public YouTube channel. And when you have that private catalog, what you can do at any point is when you have the confidence, you could turn that private to public. So this is an avenue for him to improve his communication skills in front of digital technology. The younger kids, they're making Snapchats, they're making TikToks, and I'm all for it. I believe if you can make TikToks efficiently for a long period of time, eventually your presentation skills in front of technology will get way better. A person who knows how to make great, engaging TikToks can present themselves like a winner on a Zoom presentation. I had one of these Zoom calls recently, and I noticed that it never gets easier. No matter how many videos that you've been chugging out on your YouTube channel, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever, there's an element of weirdness just speaking in front of technology because it's all of you. Where with public speaking, it's all of you, yes, but there's another part. The other part includes the audience. You could tell from the audience that they're vibing with you or they're not vibing with you. But in these Zoom presentation calls, a lot of people they don't even turn on their cameras anymore. So you're cracking a joke in the meeting. You're like, man, I just cracked a joke. I don't really hear anything. I don't know if the joke popped off or what. So it's all of you. And this is something that I've noticed with a lot of these work atmospheres nowadays, where more and more people, due to work from home, they're pulling back a ton. It's like they don't even show their face on the Zoom presentation calls. They don't unmute their mic. They're there, but they're really not there. And this is where I somewhat get the manager's perspective in having people come back to the office. Because a lot of these jobs, especially IT, you don't necessarily need to be in the office for your job. But there's another element. I call that the human element, where it benefits not only you, but the entire team whenever you're in the office and they're in the office as well. There's a caveat though. I think being in the office 5 out of 5 days is not a good thing. I think it actually causes more cattiness than anything. But I think being in the office at least 2 days a week, and you could work from home the rest of the days, it builds that camaraderie. It actually makes you appreciate the days that you are in the office, and it's easier for different individuals to bond. It's hard to have a lot of career opportunities if you're only working from home and you're never even making that initiative to go into the office. However, a lot of companies are set up like that nowadays, so you need to work with what you have. If you are someone that's trying to get a promotion and you're working from home, the main thing that you can really do is sign up for more of these stretch projects, aka projects that you don't have to do, but you're just doing because it's going the extra mile, and you just need to reach out to people more. I think people forget how lucky we are in the US to have these 9-to-5 shifts, where I get it. If you're working a 9-to-5 shift in the US, you may complain about it a lot. You may say, man, I'm working 8 hours out of the day. I mean, I only have 24 hours. I'm sleeping 8 of those hours. Another 8 hours I'm working. I barely have any free time, man. This sucks. You know what I learned about recently? I learned about in China how they work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days out of the week. 6 days. Just imagine. And the thing is, if you complain too much about work-life balance over there, there's someone else that's willing to take that shift. So if you are working in the technology sector within China, your life is pretty much work. I mean, you're sleeping, I guess, but most of it is you working. You have roughly 2 to 4 hours to yourself. And what is that really? By the time you come back from work, you're exhausted. You have nothing else to focus on. You just want to knock out, and then you have to work again the next day. And the thing in China, from what I've been hearing, is that there's not that many work from home opportunities. A lot of these people, they need to actually go into the office. Now, to go into the office, you have to deal with the thing called traffic. You think US traffic is bad? Imagine China traffic. It's awful. So, yes, technically you're working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but you also need to factor in the commuting element to it. How long does it take to get into one of these subways? How long does it actually take you to get to the role? When you factor it like that, it makes you appreciate the 9-to-5 in the US. In many ways, we're blessed. And one of the only ways to understand that we're blessed is by gaining perspective. This is one of the reasons I'm always watching these documentaries on a variety of different fields. Here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan of the mainstream media, like MSNBC, CNN, Vice, etc. I'm not the biggest fan of them. Their news, that is. But what I really like about them are their documentaries. I believe their documentaries, for the most part, are well thought out. They will teach you a ton. They'll give you in-depth knowledge. And it's just fun to watch. When I was watching this Vice documentary on how people in China, they're pretty much just dedicating their life to work, it made me appreciate my lifestyle in the US. A lot of the things that I take for granted, I'm like, wait a minute. People in other countries, they have it way worse. And the only way for you to really get that perspective is by often going beyond your own experiences to either read a book or watch a documentary. So here's a little hack. For a lot of these mainstream news organizations, do not consume their news. Their news, super biased. They have an agenda. It will actually leave you dumber. Okay? The Walking Dead, it's not just a TV show. It's based on real life. The thing is, a lot of these people who are obsessed with mainstream news, they get brainwashed. There's no talking them out of whatever agenda that they've been spoon-fed. Avoid their news. Watch their documentaries, though. The more documentaries that you watch, the more that you build a literacy for how to tell stories. The greatest storytellers out there, what they do is they consume a lot of stories. There's often this misconception that either you're in creator mode or you're in consumer mode. The elite people understand that in order to be a great creator, you always need to be a great consumer. The better of a consumer that you are, the more that it is, the stories just flow out of you. And this is why I am a big fan of consuming your own content back. When you consume your own content back, what happens is you start to build this muscle that says, I should have done it like this instead. Which seems like a bad thing at first, because you're basically thinking, wait a minute, I'm supposed to consume my old content back and pretty much just regret everything? Not quite. When you are having this personalized narrative towards your own content, where you're relating with it, because you're the one that created it, your nervous system is highly engaged. And then when you're consuming the content, there's going to be a lot of places where you're like, I did this perfect. But every now and then, there's going to be certain elements where you're like, I could have done it like this instead. Instead of using all these different words, I could have used fewer words. Instead of being so monotone on this element, I could have spiced it up with a more engaging tonality. Instead of slouching right on here, I should have made my body big. When you have that, I should have done this instead mentality towards your past content, it influences your present day. And one time that I really learned about this was from professional wrestling. I saw this one wrestler who was saying that he was talking to the COO, the guy who's responsible for the creative ventures. His name is Triple H. And Triple H basically came to this new wrestler and said, you are about to embark on this pay-per-view event. It's going to be a lot of pressure on you. A lot of people that are normally not watching you are watching you today. Here's what I want you to understand. Slow it down. Whenever you are in doubt, just slow it down. Whenever you think you're moving too fast, slow it down. And when you are certain that you are moving a little too slow, slow it down. And this newbie wrestler, he's hearing this and he's thinking that Triple H is speaking a bunch of rubbish. If he's slowing down that much, then it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be an engaging match. So he somewhat listens to Triple H, but a lot of Triple H's words go in one ear, out the other. He does this match. A couple of weeks goes on by, a couple of months goes on by, and he watches this match again. And as he's watching the match, he realizes that Triple H was right. He could have slowed it down even more. There was this one move where he has to go on top of one of the ropes and jump off and hit the opponent on the table. That move could have been at least 25 to 35 seconds long, really milking it, engaging the audience, building the suspense. Slow it down. But this wrestler, instead of making it at least 35 seconds, he made it like 2 seconds. He didn't give the audience the time to enjoy this move. And after he watched his content back and he saw, man, I should have done it like this instead. He built this literacy for how he was going to move in the future. And that's because his nervous system was engaged. See, dread, it gets a bad reputation. A lot of people hate feeling dread. But the thing with content creation is that you often need to feel dread, especially the way that things are going nowadays. If you haven't noticed, a lot of these high production late night talk shows, they're losing viewership. A lot of people are not watching them like they once were. It's because they're too perfect. The general public, they're tired of too perfect. They want real. And what's going to happen more and more, especially in the future, is that streamers are going to win, where there's no do-over. You're just talking for a long period of time. If certain things mess up, they mess up. You just need to be able to shake it off and move forward. That's who the future belongs to. The future does not belong to people who need to edit things out a lot. That worked in linear TV, but for new media, a lot of it's going towards streaming. Are you one of these guys that can entertain people for 2 to 4 hours uninterrupted? See, I'm not a big fan. I don't actually watch any form of streaming. I don't watch guys like Sneeko, Kai Sanat, Speed, or whatever. I don't watch them, but I respect them. I respect them because their ability to communicate for such a long period of time, it is not easy. These ArmaniTalks shows, these are 1 hour long. And after the 1 hour, I'm like, man, I need to lie down because my mind is going through the roof, just having these random thoughts, articulating these thoughts, no preparation beforehand. There's a light on my face. Anytime I'm running out of breath, I need to smile and gain composure again. I'm only doing this for 1 hour. These streamers, the top tier streamers, they're doing it for hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, and more. So they deserve some respect. These guys are getting younger and younger too. And I appreciate it when the older generation can somewhat appreciate the younger generation. I saw this TikTok of this dad who was watching Kai Sanat with his son. And he's like to his son, you see this Kai kid? He's young. He grew up in the hood in New York. He doesn't have that much. But look at what he's doing. He's building this media empire where he has so many people watching him that nowadays, top tier celebrities, they're coming to his platform because they understand that coming to his platform is going to help their brand. And he's like, son, I want you to start thinking a little bit more like Kai Sanat. How can you make an impact with the technology that's provided to you? We have technology that past generations only dreamed of. If you wanted to ever write in the newspaper, imagine the amount of gatekeepers that you needed to go through in order to get even your one entry out there. It's difficult. Nowadays, you could just start a blog. You could build a consistent readership over time, and then people will pay you to get on your platform. So times are changing, especially if you understand how technology works. The older generation that's always hating on the younger generation, notice their personal life. They're not going anywhere. These people, they're very crusty looking. They have untamed beards. They have this big belly. They're always hating on the younger generation. And look at the people that are hyping up the younger generation. They have this charm to their face. They're very curious. They want to know more. It's really easy to get stuck in the hating tendency, especially towards the younger generation. And I realize it's easier than ever to do that once you hit 30. Because by the time you hit 30, the younger generation does not really consider you young anymore. But the older generation, they don't really consider you old, right? Like the 40-year-olds are like, wait a minute, young buck. And the younger generation, the 20-year-olds are like, yo, what's good, unk? So being in your 30s is sort of like being, I would say, 12 years old. Or when you're 12 years old, you're not really a teen, right? You're almost there, but you're not a teen. So you're in this confused state. And when you're 30 years old, the younger guys, the 20-year-olds are like, well, you're not young anymore. And the 40-year-olds are like, well, you're not mature yet. You still got a lot of learning to do. So in the 30s, I believe this is a great time to really understand who you are. Once you hit 30, you have a lot more resources than you did when you were in your 20s. When I was 20 to 21, I recall my job was paying me barely any money. The limited money that I got, I would save. I actually still have the paychecks from my first ever job. That's how it used to be. Like, we didn't just get deposited the money. We would actually get a paycheck. The lady would drop it off like an envelope to our desk. Then we'd go to an Amscot, check it. That was the old days. And I just remember, like, back in the days, I didn't have that many resources. Whenever I would go out with my friends, I was very stingy with spending too much money because I'm thinking, I don't have that much money. I need to save whatever I can get. But by your 30s, you hopefully are setting yourself up in a way where you're building some side hustles, you have maybe a job, you're doing something where you have resources. And when you have resources, it's easier to experiment and see what you want. I see different people experimenting with different things. I know guys in their 30s that are learning how to garden. Garden? I thought gardening was for old people. No, not really. I want to learn how to garden. I noticed in my backyard recently there was a lemon. I thought, oh, whoa, we have a lemon tree in the backyard. How about I create more trees in the backyard? People who garden, they always tell me the same thing. They say the best way to understand God is through farming and gardening. Very similar, because they're saying you're directly tapped into Mother Nature. And that's when you start to understand how things are a process. You don't just plant a seed and then you immediately get the fruit. You plant the seed, you water it, you nurture it, you allow the sun to radiate its rays on it. Unfortunately, a lot of the seeds, they're not going to blossom. Other seeds, they are going to blossom. It teaches you apparently a lot about life. You start to see, I see, not all seeds are the same. I see, everything is a process. It takes time. And it's not something where you're saying, all right, I watered my plants enough, I guess I'm done, right? No. When you have a garden, it's an ongoing commitment. Sort of like when you have a pet, it's an ongoing commitment. So the more that I learned about gardening, the more that I learned that it's not simply something that is for older folks. It's something that can easily be understood by the younger generation as well. And it's something that I think the younger generation does need, because one of the criticisms that we often have is that we're that generation that wants to rush the process. Well, if we do want to rush the process, one way to come back to earth is by doing something that forces us to be patient. And that is gardening. So that is something that I do want to pick up in the near future. I definitely want to plant a tree, watch this tree grow, and say, that is mine. I saw this tree when it was so tiny, and now it is huge. In my parents' backyard, I recall my uncle one time gave me this very small tree. It was a bunch of thin branches back in the days. We planted it, we watered it, and then I eventually ended up going to college. Each time that I came back, this, I believe it's called a neem tree, started to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. If you actually go on my YouTube channel and go all the way in one of the earlier videos, I'm wearing a black shirt and I'm in my parents' backyard. I show that tree. That tree is so freaking big right now. And anytime I go back home, I have to look at that tree. I think, man, it was so small before. Now it's gargantuan. That's how life works. That's how businesses work. That's how complex systems work. It starts off small. Too many people lose faith at that small element, but you just got to be patient. And this is why one guy I've always respected was Jeff Bezos and his ability to communicate complex ideas in very simple ways. Where Jeff Bezos gets a lot of hate, a lot. And I think it's somewhat unwarranted considering that he is one of the brightest minds that we have in this generation. He just has that visual look that him and Bill Gates, both of them have that look where you're like, I don't know what story it is, but you guys are the villains. They just have that look. I'm going to come back to their look because it is somewhat important for communication skills. But what Jeff Bezos says is that things start off very small. You just need to take these tiny, bold steps. And the reason you want it to be bold is because this is the best you can do with what you have at the moment. Just keep working harder and harder with a small thing. And it's going to be small for a couple of years. Do not lose patience. Do not lose faith. Just be grateful for a lot of these small steps. Be grateful that you're in the game at all. Because a lot of people, they make these mistakes in the small stage that takes them out of the game. You're at least in the game. Just keep working hard and eventually something colossal will grow. He had that philosophy when he was building Amazon. And nowadays he's having this philosophy as he's building his space company. Now back to the looks. With all the respect to Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, they have very unappealing looks. The thing with Jeff Bezos is, yeah, he's muscular, he has that, but he's bald. And it's one of those bald looks that, I don't know why, but when you're bald and you have a lot of power, for some reason, people associate that with being a villain. No clue why, it's just something that I've observed. When you are a powerful bald man, people somewhat resent you a little bit more. I've noticed this dynamic even when I was working in these companies. When you're bald and let's say you're anything short of nice, people will treat you unfairly even quicker. So with Jeff Bezos, it's the baldness. With Bill Gates, his problem is that he frowns a lot. And this frowning, it comes off a tad bit condescending. It's not just one of those, he literally frowns like that. It's a complete upside down smile. And you could Google image this if you want. And that's a very unappealing look to the eyes. When people are communicating with someone and they're kind of looking like, it does not look good. And when you're unappealing physically and you're trying to get that mainstream success, people are going to often dislike you, but they don't know why. Like people will maybe agree with an idea that Bill Gates is sharing, but just due to his unappealing look, they'll say something about that guy, I just don't trust him. So whoever Bill Gates' PR agent is, they should tell him to do work on two things. One, start smiling a little bit more, dude. And two, you're kind of staking your claim as this health expert, right? A lot of the projects that you're currently working on are health related. Well, if you're trying to be this health expert, you need to look a little bit more appealing physically as well. You can't have this weird belly, no arms or anything like that. You need to go to the gym. You need to work out. People underestimate how much your looks play a role in communication skills. It's a dark truth, but it's the truth. Not everything is just happening via your words or even your message. This is tough to understand. A lot of times, people are making these rash judgments based on, is your shirt ironed? No? I mean, then you come off as sloppy. Are you tall? If you're tall for whatever reason, people, they're just going to trust you more. You're going to look like the boss in the interaction. Do you have the face card? If you have a face card, by the way, so many opportunities open up that you'll be blind to it. I've seen people that, they have that face card and they're competent. If you look good, you have a pretty face and you're competent, opportunities just open up. But the tough thing about having a good looking face is that it doesn't really challenge you to work on your communication skills. One of the ugliest dudes I know has the bold voice. Like when he talks, you listen. And it's unique because he's not the best looking. And that is one of the reasons he has such an amazing voice. A lot of people just ignored him while he was growing up. So he had to work on honing his voice in a certain way where people are forced to listen. So the good thing about having this amazing face card is that often opportunities will open up for you. The bad thing is that it doesn't challenge you to work on your micro communication skills. I believe no matter how good looking you are, you should always be working on things that you know that you lack in. I recall one of the things that I lacked in was, getting an entire group's attention. And it's tougher nowadays than ever, because nowadays what happens a lot is everyone is like, saying they have ADHD. A lot of people struggle with concentration skills. It's just tough. And recently, I ended up getting married, and I had to do this wedding entrance. And I basically had to teach 7 other people this dance move for the entrance. Me and one of my buddies, we were working on the choreography. And, as we were working on it, every now and then he would say, like, we should, run, and then we should stop and just do like this move, and then we should start running again. It's a very small move, but I'm like, here's the thing, dude. I love that move, but when we try to teach it, others are going to get confused. They're going to start bumping into each other. They're going to be like, whoa, wait, do I do this whole standing motion on this step or this step? It's going to add a lot of confusion. And at first, my buddy, he was somewhat upset. He's like, come on, dude, it's just one move. You're telling me 7 people can't learn that? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And leading up to the wedding, when we were teaching the moves, he came up to me and he's like, thank God we scrapped that, bro. Because I realized how difficult it is to teach a group of people. Back then, I noticed that teaching a group of people would have been way more difficult, because I just don't do well when others are constantly trying to chime in. I'm saying like, hey, we got to do X, Y, and Z, but then they're kind of like already onto a brand new thought. This time around, a couple of things changed. I noticed I had to raise my voice a little bit more. When you're having your indoor voice in group interactions, get ready to be cut off a lot. That's when you don't want to be too civil. You need to be able to raise your voice more. Okay? And shortly, I'm going to talk about the difference between raising your voice and yelling. They're different. Okay? So that's one thing that I did this time around. I was raising my voice a lot more. Another thing that I did was I was using my palms a lot more. Whenever someone was talking a little too much out of turn, I would put my palm on his shoulder and be like, hold on, give me a second. And I noticed when you actually touch them, they will stop. They're like, and then they just come back to reality. It's so difficult to talk to a group nowadays, because randomly, when they have this impulsive thought, they're just back into talking mode. You're on a time crunch. You're trying to teach them something, but as soon as they have this random thought, they start talking. They do not underestimate how quickly they can change the topic to something new. You guys are supposed to be talking about dancing, but then they're certainly talking about what's for breakfast tomorrow. So you really need to take charge. That's one thing that I'm learning more than ever. So if you're going to be doing these group interactions, you really need to raise your voice more. You got to use your palms more. You got to touch them every now and then. And if you feel uncomfortable with that, say their name, but you need to be more active. You can't just be one of these guys that's talking a lot, because your words are going up against their thoughts. And the average human mind thinks 30,000 thoughts a day. Do you really think your words alone it's going to be able to combat everything that they're thinking? No. So that's why you really, really need to take the effort to be active. Now, with that being said, what is the difference between raising your voice and yelling? Raising your voice and yelling have one thing in common. It's when you are talking louder than you normally do. But the difference lies in the intent, where when you're raising your voice, you're not furious. Or with yelling, you are furious. When you're raising your voice, you may be agitated. Maybe you're getting tired of being cut off so much, so you are speaking louder than you're normally used to speaking. But you're not furious. When you're yelling at someone, you typically are furious at them. So that's where the difference lies. Now the question is, should you raise your voice at others? I think yes. I think the more of a leadership role that you are picking up, the more that you need to practice raising your voice without sounding like an enemy to them. You need to be able to raise your voice in a way where it simply seems like an extension of your personality. You see, I just raised my voice, but I hopefully did not sound like your enemy. Do not assume that raising your voice can only be done in a negative way. Because if that's what you think, then it's going to cause you to have a very nasty tonality. It's very similar to you thinking the only way you could turn down an event is by being rude. If you think that's the case, then whenever you're turning down an event, you're going to have this nasty tone like, no, I'm good. Versus if you think, no, you could turn down events in a very polite way, then someone invites you to an event, you'll have this friendly tonality where you're like, I really wish I could make it, bro, but unfortunately, I can't come to this one. The next one, I'll definitely be there. See, you turned down the event, but you did not create an enemy in the process. It's the same thing with raising your voice. There's going to be times when you do have to raise your voice. Multiple people are talking at the same time, and they desperately need a leader. You have to serve as that leadership role. So that's when you raise your voice. The more that you practice, the more that it sounds warm and charismatic rather than harsh and abrasive. Yelling, is that ever required, or should you ever do it? I know a lot of these mental health experts nowadays vilify yelling. And they're like, no, you should never yell. Just use your words. When you're yelling at someone, you're really opening up their trauma wounds, blah, blah, blah. I'm not the biggest fan of that perspective. I think there is a time and place to yell. You don't always want to yell at someone, but absolutely, there is a time and place. Recently, there was this situation where I ended up getting a lot of money from this one place where I publish books. Finally, I got the money because for the past 2 years, they owed me this money, but they just wouldn't give it to me. They kept giving me the runaround, transferring me to one team after another. I would constantly just hit them up. They had to reopen tickets. It was a big mess. So much time was being wasted. And one day, I just yelled at them. I was like, man, you're wasting so much of my time. What is going on? You guys are a Fortune 500 company, and you guys are disrespecting the authors. I'm just letting them have it. And it wasn't done. Even on emails, your boy did all caps locks, man. Exclamation points. I was yelling at them via the email. Now, this was a risky move because they could have easily have been like, you know what? We don't want to work with you anymore. But instead, what happened was 2 days goes on by and the executive team hits me up. The executive team is like, it has been brought to our attention that something very bad is happening to you. And unfortunately, it's not only happening to you, it's actually happening to a bunch of other authors. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are actively working on it. I thought, oh, wow, the executive team. It only took so freaking long. Now, it took so long because I was being civil for so long. I was saying, okay, well, sounds good. All right, well, get back to me whenever you can. They forgot. They were being annoying. So when the executive team got involved, a big reason for that was because of the yelling. It is a risky move, though, because it doesn't matter how true your message is. It doesn't matter how justified you are to yell. With certain people, if you yell at them, it is going to open up trauma wounds. Maybe when they were a kid, they got yelled at, they felt very defenseless. And now as a 35-year-old man, when they're getting yelled at, they get transported back to their 5-year-old self. So it doesn't matter how true and honest your opinion of them is. It's like if you yell at them, they are going to shut down. So it's a risky move. You definitely want to watch out for it. Is it okay? I believe in certain doses, absolutely. So these are these little nuances you have to learn with communication skills, where you'll see a lot of the actions are the same, but the intent behind it, it's different. Very similar to mistake versus malice, where malice and mistake both leads to a behavior that you are not cool with, but the intent is different. So let's say, for example, you tell someone, hey, let's say you're dating someone, right? And you tell them, hey, I don't want you to consume any alcohol. Now, they say they understand. One day, they end up eating this pasta, and the sauce was made with alcohol. And you're like, well, what the heck? I thought I told you never to consume alcohol. And they're like, wait, I thought you were talking about like drinking alcohol. I didn't know even with food we couldn't do it. Now it's up to you to distinguish, is this a mistake or is it malice? Malice is when they willingly did it after knowing, right? Like they knew that this was going to bother you, but they're like, oh, whatever. If caught, I'll just, make up an excuse. A mistake is when they genuinely didn't know. They had no clue. And it's so difficult to be able to distinguish between these two because temporarily you're having to read someone's mind. Like you don't know like what their heart is like. Ultimately, it's a judgment call. So it's like, oh man, what do I do? If you think it was malice when it was really a mistake, then you're unfairly judging them. But if it was actually malice and it wasn't a mistake, but you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, then you're kind of giving a snake a pass. So that's where communication skills becomes very tricky in the real world. And that's where listening becomes very important because let's say you forgive them this time. Let's say you say, okay, even though I told you not to consume alcohol, you ended up consuming alcohol. It wasn't a shot. It was via the alcohol in the sauce. I forgive you. But for future reference, avoid consuming any alcohol. I don't care if it's a shot. I don't care if it's food. Just avoid consuming any alcohol. They say that they understand. Now, 2 weeks goes on by and they do it again. Is this still a mistake? That's for you to decide. But if mistakes consistently happen, it's not a mistake. It's a behavior. And the reason that a lot of people stay in these toxic relationships for far too long is because they cannot tell the difference between a mistake and a behavior. Mistakes are one-off scenarios, where behaviors are patterns. If you see the pattern, then this is something that it's them. And you can't easily change them with your words. Now, can they change? Of course. There are tons of relationships where one person changes for the other. But you have to see whether or not they want to change. Your desire for them is not going to be enough. A lot of the times you just need to be like, do you really think you're doing something wrong? If they say no, then it's like, oh man, bro, they don't see the need to change. It's super difficult to change. So if there's no desire, if they don't see the need in the first place, all you're doing is you're nagging them. Each time that they do the behavior again in the future and you're telling them not to do it, they're going to do it again. And each time you keep bringing it up, instead of them thinking that they're doing something wrong, they think you're doing something wrong by nagging them. And this is why I always say the right person at the wrong time equals the wrong person. Let me say that again. The right person at the wrong time equals the wrong person. Because the right person basically means that they are your type. There's a lot of compatibility. There's a lot of chemistry. But it could be the wrong time. Maybe they don't want to settle down right now. Maybe they want to settle down after they are done with school. Maybe they want to settle down once they're in their 30s. This is what the wrong time is. And a lot of people, they say, well, we have so much compatibility. I know it's the wrong time right now, but eventually it'll be the right time. You don't necessarily know that. So it's best to just view this as the wrong person. It's heartbreaking though. I was actually having this conversation with my buddy recently. He's single and he's reigniting conversations with his ex. I'm like, dude, there are so many girls on this planet. Why do you have to talk to your ex for? He's like, dude, I kid you not, man. I tried to go back on these dating apps, but it's the wild, wild west, man. A lot of these conversations, they don't go anywhere. A lot of ghosting, a lot of random hoopla, a lot of this noise. I would much rather make it work with someone I know very well versus starting off new with a stranger. And when he explained that rationale, I completely got it. And that's when we both had the conclusion, finding someone nowadays, it's a modern day miracle, or the older generation may not understand it. Or a lot of the times I've noticed older generations, they'll get two biodatas and they'll be like, these two are the perfect match. On paper, they are the perfect match. But when you see their interaction in person, you'll see that it's very clunky. They disagree on politics. They disagree on faith. They just disagree on a lot of things. On paper, though, the professions look bright. One is really tall, the other is short, just like they like that. They're willing to live in the same location. But still, it's just people have different desires nowadays. And it just is a modern day miracle whenever people match. So I completely got where my buddy was coming from. I told him, just beware, because getting with an ex, I heard a very good analogy one time. Getting with an ex is like coming back from the gym. You're wearing very sweaty clothes. You take the sweaty clothes off. You take a shower. And after the shower, you put the sweaty clothes back on. It's like, bro, what are you exactly doing? You see what I'm saying? Now I'm being a little facetious. Like every now and then getting back with an ex could work. I've seen situations where someone got back with an ex and it led to a marriage. But more often than not, it is not going to work. And you need a guy like Armani to tell you it is not going to work. You're wasting a lot of time. Just find someone new. I know that it's difficult, but find someone new. And when you find someone new, this is going to test your communications skills like none other. The process of finding someone, right? Going through a bunch of junk to find that one person, it teaches you more about yourself. Modern dating is meant to make you more introspective. And until you become more introspective, you're not going to find anyone. You're always going to nitpick others. The more introspective you become, the more that you start to realize certain flaws within yourself. You're going to see, I'm being way too judgmental with this. This is really not a big deal. This, on the other hand, is a big deal. Then you're going to ask a follow-up question about yourself. You're going to ask, why is it such a big deal for? Right? I can't even put it into words. And that's when you're going to realize that you simply just adopted this belief. And certain beliefs, adopting it, I don't think there's a thing wrong with that. People make it seem like you have to just tear down everything, question everything. When you question everything, it doesn't lead to much resolutions. It just gives you more analysis paralysis. So I'll give you an example for me. One thing that was very important for me was to just get another Desi girl, like a Bengali girl. I did not see myself settling down long term with a Spanish girl, a white girl, a Caribbean girl, etc. I really wanted a Desi girl. More specifically, I wanted a Bengali girl. This was just a thought that I had on autopilot. I never questioned it or anything until a couple of times I would match with these girls that had the same religion as me, but they were, let's say, from Palestine or Afghanistan. And I'm just like, nah, really not for me. And after saying not for me a couple of times, I thought, why? I mean, why am I constantly saying no to them for? I mean, they're technically the same religion. And that's when I started to trace it back. And I realized that I just adopted the belief of they should be Bengali like me, or at least Desi. And guess what? I was like, I don't care. I don't care if I just randomly adopted this belief, because I don't see the need to tear this apart. You could, by the way. There are tons of logical reasons on why this is a flaw in the thinking. I could tear it apart and insert a brand new idea. But for me, I really didn't care. And that just made me more introspective as a whole. So the more that you're in this dating landscape, and it's not just about dating, by the way, any venture that requires you to put yourself out there where there is a high chance of rejection, it is meant to make you more introspective. You're not supposed to get bitter. If a job turns you down, sure, it hurts, it stings, but then ask yourself the question, why does it sting so much? I mean, why did I want this job a lot? You start to ask more questions. You're like, this is a really good industry. What makes it a good industry? Oh, this is a familiar industry. This aligns with my skill set. Another thing is that it's a hybrid position. It's not necessarily work from home. It's not completely go into the office. It's hybrid. I guess hybrid is very important for me. And from there, pain is leading to wisdom. So I don't consider myself a smart guy at all. That's one thing I've noticed. I think when you create content for long enough, you're going to build an audience. Different people are going to hop in your DMs and they're going to gas you up. They're going to be like, dude, man, I don't know where you think of some of this stuff, but you're smart. I get comments like that on my Instagram a lot, on my newsletter, on my tweets. And I'm always thinking like, bro, if you know me, I am the last thing from smart. I would say I'm more wise than smart. And the difference between that is a smart guy, they're capable of working in rule sets very well. So you put a smart guy in a safe environment like school, there are certain processes that they need to get through. And then they get tested for an exam. They get that A. I'm not getting that A. When it's too clean for me, I often end up making more mistakes. I will get you a C. I probably won't get you a D or an F. I know I'm not going to get you an A. I'll probably get you a C or a B, right? So I'm not really smart. I'm more wise in terms of pain. It simply strengthens me. I do think that there are certain times when you deal well with pressure, you need to be a little mindful. If you're dealing too well with pressure, then people around you who are feeling very nervous, they feel like you're not taking the event too seriously. So let's say you have a speech coming up and your buddies also have a speech coming up as well. They're super nervous, but you've given a ton of speeches before and you're too calm. You're just like, oh, bro, I don't care. I mean, I'm already ready. You're probably ready. You're going to give a great speech just because you have that muscle memory to do so. But if you're so calm and you're surrounded by a bunch of nervous people, you're not really reading the room too well. Instead of showcasing how calm you are, listen to them more. Trust me, man, like this feels like kind of like a waste of time. It's very similar to being that one employee that's super productive, but super quiet. You're just going to spark resentment and others are going to say, oh, well, what? Is he too good to speak to the rest of us? Like a bunch of gossip for no apparent reason. So every now and then you have to somewhat dumb yourself down and gossip with these guys just so you don't have a target on your back. It's very similar to when you're really calm, people are nervous by you, and you just have to be like, oh man, like every now and then you're pretending to be nervous even though you're not. Like, oh man, like this is a high pressure situation. They're like, oh man, are you kind of feeling it? Yeah, man, I'm feeling a lot of nerves, man. I'm ready, but if your boy is feeling some of the nerves, in some ways that calms them down. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. Versus if they're super nervous and you're like, wait, what? You're nervous? I'm not nervous at all. Then they begin to resent you. So if you are someone that is capable of dealing with pressure, you're very wise for your age. Every now and then you need to be able to dial it back just a little bit. This is why humor is so important. When you're this very intelligent, smart, wise, beyond your ears kind of guy, and you're always being super wise, you're always turning things into a lecture mode, you do not win any friends. If you're 33 years old and you're a super smart guy and you're always lecturing others, people are going to despise you. Versus you're this funny guy, you're capable of cracking jokes. Every now and then you sprinkle in some lessons. Like people have no clue that they're learning from you. That after they leave, they're like, wait a minute, he just taught me something that I never knew. They're going to appreciate you for that. So here's how I want to end the episode. The smarter that you are, the funnier that you really need to be. And the way that you're going to be funny is honestly by embracing your silly side. We all have a silly side. Every now and then it's going to slip out. Like certain times you're so excited, you just can't contain it. You're going to be a little sillier than usual. You want to avoid a lot of these masculine content online where it's good to be masculine. Don't get me wrong. But some of these guys, they completely overdo it. They're like, bro, even when like someone tells a joke, don't smile too much because that indicates weakness, bro. Just don't do it. And it just creates a bunch of these robots, man. And when you're too serious, people just don't like you. So to be funnier, you just got to embrace your silly side. Every now and then you just want to, crack a joke. You want to embrace humor. When you see other people trying to crack a joke, rather than being so serious, be like, that didn't make me laugh. Just want to give a fake laugh every now and then. The more that humor is invited to your life, the more that your wisdom is well received. And when the wisdom is well received, ironically, what happens is that humor and wisdom, they expand one another. The funnier that you are, the better that you're able to tap into different sides of you that leads to lessons that you can relate to the public in a smooth fashion. And if you can't even embrace your silly side, what you want to do every now and then is just smile a little bit more. Just that. You see that? Just a little bit more of a smile. And by doing that, what will happen is that you start to feel a lot better. Anyways, we are in the last 5 minutes, so let me just kind of explain certain things. The ArmaniTalks brand, for those of you guys who listened all the way through, it is a brand that is meant to help engineers and entrepreneurs improve their communication skills. This is a multimedia company. So you're not only going to see me on YouTube, I also have a Twitter. I also have an Instagram. I also have a podcast, a newsletter, a blog. And guess what? I create all my content. I will never outsource the content to a third-party source. And believe me, a lot of people hit me up in the DMs and they're like, can I write your tweets for you? I'm like, my dude, it's called ArmaniTalks, not Raj Malhotra Talks. All right? ArmaniTalks. So everything that you are getting, it is from my authentic experiences. I craft the stories from my authentic experiences to help you learn more about communication skills. Because here's the thing with communication. You're not going to learn it through lectures. I could sit you down right now and I could tell you how a speech is designed. It's not going to work because I know what's happening inside. You're feeling a lot of nerves. You're feeling nervous. You're feeling dread. It's not going to work. What is going to work is when your ego is temporarily removed and you're consuming a story from someone else's perspective. This someone else is me. I'm talking about how my first ever speech, I was feeling a lot of nerves, how my first ever speech, I choked. I disappeared for months because I was so embarrassed about seeing the same people that watched me choke. I was feeling regret. And eventually I kicked myself in the butt. Hey, Armani, man, you're not getting any younger, bro. Get up, work, figure this out. And then eventually I figure it out. I go back to Toastmasters. I give a talk. This one goes better. I eventually join the club. I eventually give speeches. I eventually become the vice president of Toastmasters. You're seeing the story play out from a new lens. And that's when you start to understand, even if I do fail for whatever reason, it is not the end of my story. This is a way better way to learn communication skills than me sitting you down and simply giving you a lecture. So that's what makes the ArmaniTalks brand unique. It teaches communication skills from a storytelling narrative format. So if you enjoy content like this, I definitely want you to recommend my channel, my brand to others. The thing is, people that consume ArmaniTalks content, they range from people that are 7 years old to 65 years old. So my message, it's universal. It's not something that's only for a targeted demographic. Women listen to ArmaniTalks. Men listen to ArmaniTalks. Teenagers listen to ArmaniTalks. People from overseas listen to ArmaniTalks. So whenever you get the opportunity, recommend my brand to others. I help tons of professionals believe in themselves, improve their communication skills. And whenever you recommend a brand to someone and it ends up helping them, this is a primal way to provide value. All this content nowadays, it's so divisive. Everyone's just talking about politics all the time. Everyone's talking about how to be more macho. One gender is putting down the other gender. It's a big embarrassment. So we need more content that unites people rather than divides them. So if you like content like that, recommend my brand to your friends, to your family, to your coworkers, etc. I would really appreciate that. Now, with that being said, this is the last time I'm going to see you for this year. So I'm hoping that you finish this year off strong. I'm going to catch you in 2025. And remember, New Year's resolutions only mean something when you stick by them. So make this year strong. And by the way, I just got 1 minute left. So let me just give you a little tip. Buy a huge calendar, a calendar with all the months on it. You could get that from Amazon. Then think of a skill set that you want to double down on. A couple of years ago when I did this, I chose writing. I really wanted to improve my writing. By the time January starts, you are going to write, hypothetically, if that's your skill set of choice, every single day. And every single day that you write, you get a red Sharpie and you mark an X on that day. Eventually, this chain, it's going to start to build up and you are going to feel weird if you don't write for that day. And this is a practical way to work on your New Year's resolution. This is how Jerry Seinfeld has been consistent for over 20 plus years. If you want to learn more about this, I do have a video called the Seinfeld Chain Strategy, but I really want you to set a New Year's resolution and actually stick with it. Don't have 30 different skill sets. Just have that one skill set if you master, it is tremendously going to improve your life. So good luck with 2025, and I will see you then. Thank you.